Hey everyone, my name is Rune Shadows, and today I'll give you an introduction to Prismata. Prismata is a hybrid strategy game developed and released by Lunark Studios. Prismata combines elements from chess, StarCraft, Magic the Gathering, and Dominion into a turn-based perfect information strategy game. It combines the tactical strategy of chess, build orders and resource management of StarCraft, and random set elements of Dominion with the combat system of Magic. If you've seen a game of Prismata, then you know that there's a lot to take in on first glance. The purpose of this video is to give you a basic rundown of how a multiplayer game works, so that if you're watching a tournament, live stream, or similar, you can get up to speed to at least follow along. We'll go over the UI, the basic units, introductory combat mechanics, so without further ado, let's get into our first game of Prismata. Alright, for this very first game, I'll be playing against the pacifist bot with no time limit, just to give you an overview of the starting position and user interface. You start every game of multiplayer with units already on the board, just like in chess. Both players start with engineers and drones, player 2 beginning with one extra drone. The reason for this is to counteract the advantage player 1 gets by going first. The next thing to notice is the 5 resources listed at the bottom and top of the screen. The bottom is your resource pool, and the top is your opponent's. The resources in order are gold, gaussite, bohemium, repliques, and energy. Drones produce gold, and engineers produce energy, which is mainly used to purchase more drones. The other 3 resources are referred to as tech, and are usually identified by their colors: green, blue, and red, respectively. A key thing to note here is that gold and green can be stored up or banked, whereas blue, red, and energy will disappear at the end of your turn. You may also notice this number in parentheses. That's the gold estimate, and displays how much you'll have next turn. Now, let's get into the real-time strategy or StarCraft-based part of the game. Each turn, you can click your drones to produce gold, and then spend that to buy more units. Each unit highlighted in green has a click ability that can be toggled. Drone clicks for 1 gold, or you can hold it back as a blocker. Engineer has no click ability, but it gives us the energy automatically. Let's click all our drones. You can see the units you're allowed to buy in the panel on the left. The 11 units listed here are called the base set, and are available to buy in every game of Prismata. The first 5 units are the economy units, engineer and drone we've already seen, followed by conduit, blastforge, and animus, which produce green, blue, and red tech, respectively. The last 6 are basic attack and defense units. First, let's look at wall. It's a pretty basic blocker unit indicated by the purple shield at the top. It costs 5 gold and 1 blue, and has 3 health. It is also a prompt unit, which means it can block the same turn that it is bought. Next, let's look at the other blue unit, Steel Splitter. While veteran Prismata players will grumble at me for saying this, initially you can think of Steel Splitter as an upgraded wall in most respects. It is also a blocker, has 3 health, and costs only 1 additional gold, but you get to click optionally to attack with it each turn. The downside is, it isn't prompt, so you must wait to block with it, or buy it early. Moving on, we have the red units, Tarsier and Rhino. On first glance, you notice that only one of them is a blocker, and Tarsier, the non-blocker, has a measly 1 health. This is because it is a fairly cost-efficient attacker instead, costing only 4 gold and 1 red, and automatically giving you 1 attack per turn. Tarsier also introduces the delayed build time mechanic. We saw that wall was prompt, meaning it is usable immediately. Steel Splitter was non-prompt, therefore you must wait 1 turn for it to build. And now we see Tarsier takes 2 turns to build. Rhino is another prompt blocker, but it isn't as tough as wall. However, it can attack sometimes. Rhino uses the stamina mechanic, meaning that it has a limited number of uses, in this case 2, for its attack ability. So to review, red is usually thought of as the offensive color, and blue the defensive one. The last 2 units are in the green tech, normally thought of as a utility. The first unit, Force Field, costs a whole drone in addition to its resource costs. But it's actually quite useful for some extra prompt defense in a pinch. Gauss Cannon is a pretty basic high health attacker. You'll notice that both of these units have another keyword that is pretty common on green units, fragile. This means that when they are damaged, they do not restore their health at the start of the next turn. Going back to wall for a second, you can see that it has a blue plus. This means that if it takes non-lethal damage, namely 2 or less, then at the start of the next turn it will heal back up to 3. A Gauss Cannon, on the other hand, sporting the Fragile Heart, will remain at 3 health if it takes 2 damage. So on one hand, it does have higher health to begin with, but on the other, it can't absorb. What is absorb, you ask? Well, that's a great segue into the next section on combat basics. To explore combat, we're now playing against Masterbot, a bot that will actually attack us. Let's begin by stating the objective of every game. Destroy all your opponent's units. You do this by purchasing units of your own that gain attack. Each turn, all your attack is pooled, which you will see in a total on the right. Then, when you end your turn, your opponent uses their blockers to defend the pooled attack. If the total health of their blockers exceeds your attack, then they can choose how they want to defend. Likewise, each turn you must defend, and if your defense is larger than their attack, you can choose how to defend. This is vital because it lets you absorb. Let's play a few turns to see how this works. Alright, I've played a couple turns. I've bought more drones and an animus last turn so that we'll have red tech to spend. This will let us get our own attack goes. Here, our opponent has 1 potential attack because they bought this Gauss Cannon. We have 2 engineers to defend, so we're over defended. And that lets us spend all our money on attack. And then we'll fit an extra drone in. And we'll end our turn. You'll remember that Tarsiers have a build time of 2. That's what this little number means. Alright, so here's our first combat. The Gauss Cannon produced 1 attack. This is no longer potential, it's actually coming at us right now. We're in our defense phase, so we must assign our defense. We have 2 defense because we have 2 engineers, each with 1 health. Therefore, we can defend with either of them. Doesn't matter which one. End our defense. Harvest all our drones. Now you'll see we only have 1 engineer left. That means we have 1 defense against our opponent's 1 potential attack. The game helpfully tells us that the enemy could destroy all of our defenses. So let's fix that. Here we have Rhino, a prompt defender. Buying it immediately adds to our defense pool, so now we're defended. Then let's spend the rest on attack. And now, I'm assuming my opponent will probably try to build more attack in the future, so we're going to buy a Blast Forge. If you remember, blue is the most efficient defense color. And then we'll pass our turn. So during our opponent's turn, it lists our total attack potential for next turn, which is 3. And now that we actually have attack, it will show our opponent's defense on the right. So this is what a normal game state looks like. Each side of the board has attackers and defenders, and it will tell you that those numbers on each side. Alright, so here is our first absorb. Our opponent still has 1 damage, and we have 3 defense. We can do what we did last turn and lose this engineer to defend 1 damage. Or, if you recall, units with a blue plus immediately heal all their health. They cannot take non-lethal damage, basically. So this 1 damage goes into a 2 health Rhino and just gets absorbed, and our Rhino lives. So we'll do that. This turn, we're again not defended, so let's spend our blue that we just got to make an efficient wall. And then we'll spend our rest of our money on more attack. And now we have a decision here where we can click this Rhino. And we're going to because it gives us more attack, and we don't need it on defense. We're still defended against this 3 attack after we click it. Alright, end our turn. Our opponent does the same absorb thing, which I'll explain again in more detail in just a second. Alright, here we are, assigning defense. This is the key step to understanding how defense works in Prismata. Now we have enough attack that it could kill either of these, the wall or the engineer, right? So now you might think, well, we have to lose the wall. But if you remember what I said, we want it to take non-lethal damage so that it'll heal. So instead, we can choose to lose the engineer first, making the total attack 2, and then put the other 2 on our wall, and it absorbs it. So, there's actually one more thing. What happens when you have so much attack that your opponent can't defend? This is basically a continuation of our last game, and I've just played it through to the point where I keep buying Tarsiers, and then once I'm out of Tarsiers, I buy Rhinos,
And now I'm at a point where I'm at 12 attack. My opponent has force fielded all of their drones, trying desperately to defend, but finally I'm going to break through. Well, here's the fun part, the breach. So, oops, let me defend real quick. So now, we're going to send all this attack. Because we're breaching, we get to choose how to attack. So we overrun the defenders, and now we can click kill an animus, kill a conduit, kill a steel splitter. Usually you want to choose to kill your opponent's econ and high value units first. So let's do the steel splitter and drones. And then you can put the rest of the attack on something else, like this Gauss cannon, take it down to 3 health. It's not going to heal, remember, it's fragile. That's the last part of combat, and I think the most fun. And eventually, if you go through enough turns here, we can see that Masterbot realizes that it's going to lose and will let me claim the victory because he's resigned. But I can also choose just to keep playing and kill all these units, and eventually we'll be awarded the victory at the very end. Looks like I didn't spend my gold last turn. That's a great thing to do, as always. We don't really need it though. I mean, I can buy these units or I could not. It's not going to change the outcome of this game. So yeah, there we go. We kill all the units. My opponent has nothing left, and we get the victory. Alright, so now let's go to a little bit of a more complicated game, and we'll see the additional complexities that are added, and the real crux of the game, the fun part of Prismata. Alright, here we go. So now you'll see this at the beginning of the game. 8 new units were just loaded in. There's a second tab. I believe the default is to start in 2 toggleable tabs, just like this. But you can expand them out so that it's easier to see all your units. Basically, what's changed is we've added what's called the random set of units. So now I have way more options of stuff to buy. In a normal Prismata game, there are between 5 and 11, depending on the game mode that you play, random set units. And those units are balanced to be stronger than any of the units in the base set. So let's take a look at one, for example. Here's Odin. If you've played any of the campaign, you've seen it before. It'll consume a steel splitter to do 4 attack at once. If you remember, none of the base set's units did more than 1 damage at a time ever. Whereas Odin can do 4 times that. But if you look at its cost, it costs 20 and 3 blue. So it is a much bigger investment to make. But this is what makes Prismata fun. Each game at the very start, this random set of units is generated, and you have to come up with a strategy on the spot and devise the most efficient way to buy as much attack as possible to put pressure on your opponent, while also still defending efficiently so that you don't get overrun and lose all your attackers. So the random set not only introduces higher attackers, bigger blockers. If we take a look at this Omega Splitter, for instance, it's got 6 health, but it also introduces additional mechanics. Some of them are even custom to single units like Connect Driver. There's over 100 random set units, and more are being added periodically. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something, and if you're new to Prismata, I would highly recommend go play the first part of the campaign. It's free to play. Free to play launches September 26th of 2018. If you're watching this video past that date, then you already can go get free to play. If it's before that date though and you really want to play, go to the Discord. Someone will give you a free key if you ask, and you can try out the game. You get the campaign and you get about 80, might be even more, combat scenarios, so you can learn the ins and outs yourself by playing through it. And it really is fun, and that's probably the best way, I would say, to really learn how the game works. I have a guide if you're new to the game. I also stream. I run tournaments. I do various other stuff. I'm going to try to produce some more of these types of videos in the future with additional helpful tips for various different parts of the game. There's lots of cool stuff in here to check out. So I hope you stick around and explore more and enjoy your Prismata career. Thanks again for watching.